metric system is what? Dealing in powers of 10. I'll repeat. Metric system is dealing in powers of 10. For example, there's 1 meter divided into 10 equal parts. One part is 1 decimeter. Divided into 10 equal parts, one part is 1 centimeter. Divided into 10 equal parts is 1 millimeter. It's convenient. Dealing in powers of 10. So CGS system was a metric system. Moving to next, FPS system, which is also known as British system, which was still followed in many British countries or the countries where Britishers have ruled. Even in India, we follow FPS system to an extent. In the FPS system, length was measured in foot. Length was measured in foot. And mass was measured in pounds. The unit for measurement of mass was pounds. Of course, time still is measured in seconds. This is not metric system. Here, divisions were not made as it is done in metric system. Here, length is measured something like this. Yard. 1 yard was divided into 3 equal parts. One part was 1 foot. 1 foot was divided into 12 equal parts. One part is named as inch. 1 inch was divided into 8 equal parts. One is read as 1/8. So it's not metric system. Here we don't deal in powers of 10. All the terms are defined separately. Right? Now, moving to next, MK system. This is also an easy to use system, since it is even this is metric system. Again, here we deal in powers of 10. In MK system, length was measured in meter. Mass was measured in kilogram, and time still is measured in seconds. So that forms basis of MK system. Mass is measured in kg, length is measured in meter, and time is still measured in second. So that is our MK system, and even this is metric system like CGS one, right? So students, in mechanics, that's a branch of physics, unit of almost all the physical quantities can be expressed as product or division or powers of units of length, mass and time. For example, speed is unit of speed, unit of length by unit of time. Or say acceleration, unit of acceleration can be obtained by dividing unit of length by square of unit of time. So almost all the physical quantities in mechanics and the units can be derived by multiplying, dividing or taking powers of units of length, mass and time. But if you move to other branches of physics, let's say photometry or say electromagnetism, there will need few more fundamental quantities, few more quantities which can be measured directly or independently. Consider another point. In different parts of the world, scientists or physicists were using different system of measurement, different system of units. Due to this, it became inconvenient for them to exchange information across the globe. Right? Britishers were using FPS system, so all the calculations, all the theories had foot as the measurement of length. In rest of the part of the world, meter was used, somewhere centimeter was used. So it became inconvenient for scientists to exchange the information or scientific knowledge across the globe. So finally, in 11th General Conference of Weights and Measurement, which was held in 1960 in Paris, they introduced a new and more logical system of units, System International the Units, abbreviated as SI system. There they have taken 7 quantities as fundamental or base quantities, and as required they have taken two quantities as supplementary quantities. I'll show you the table where I have listed all the physical quantities which were taken as fundamental and then supplementary, their units, abbreviation for the units, and rest of the quantities were counted under derived quantity. To begin with, let's take first one, length. So first fundamental quantity here listed is length. SI unit for measurement of length was taken as meter. In SI system, unit for measurement of length was taken as meter. It's abbreviated as small m. Abbreviation is small m. Remember one thing. In words, when we say length is 50 meters, if we say the full thing, we say length of the passage was 50 meters. But you cannot put that S for plural thing in abbreviations. So even if it is 50 meter or 100 meters or 1000 meter, we will put only M as the abbreviation for meter, right? So S is not allowed with abbreviation. Also, if you take centimeter, so centimeters, we are in habit of using cm, writing cms, but actually that is wrong convention. In abbreviations, what you are supposed to do is you have to write in singular form, 50 cm, the centimeter, right? Now, next is mass. Next physical quantity here written as mass. SI system adopted kilogram as unit for measurement of mass, and it's abbreviated as kg. Once again, K and G both are lowercase alphabets. None of them are capital. Remember, K should not be capital. Capital K stands for something else. So you have to be careful. When I say small k, sorry, kilogram, it should be abbreviated as small k and small g, right? Okay. Moving to next, that is time. Third physical quantity here listed as time, and unit for measurement of time in SI system was taken as seconds. So second is unit for measurement of time in SI system, and it is abbreviated as small s. Many of us are in the habit of writing SEC, but that is wrong. Abbreviation for second is small s. Moving to next, temperature. Temperature is measured in Kelvin in SI system. Unit for measurement of temperature in SI system was taken as Kelvin, and it's abbreviated as capital K. Now question is, why capital K? So they took a decision, if the unit was derived or named after a scientist, its abbreviation should be capital alphabet or uppercase alphabet. So in the rest of the units, you must be seeing both the, if there is a single term alphabet, then also it is lowercase. If there are two, then also both of them are lowercase. As I just mentioned, capital K would stand for something else. So while writing kilogram, we should write small k and small g. But while write Kelvin, I'll write capital K, as it is named after Lord Kelvin. So one more thing I'll tell you. In other systems where temperature was measured in Celsius and Fahrenheit, there we read it as degree Celsius and degree Fahrenheit. But in SI system, if the temperature is 373 Kelvin, so I'll say 373 K. I'll not say 373 degree Kelvin, right? So degree term is not used in SI system. Okay, moving to next. Electric current. Electric current was fifth physical quantity which was taken as fundamental quantity in SI system, and unit for its measurement was ampere. Unit for measurement of current was ampere, and again it is abbreviated as capital A. Why? Again, after the name of the scientist. So capital A should be used as abbreviation for ampere, not small a. Okay. Then next is luminous intensity. Luminous intensity, and it is measured in candela. SI unit for measurement of luminous intensity was candela. We'll define all these terms: candela, 1 meter, 1 second, what exactly it is. We'll define all those terms. Let's move on. And candela is abbreviated as CD, right? So that is abbreviation for candela. Finally, amount of substance. A very confusing term. Amount of substance. We'll discuss this thing in detail in chemistry. The amount of substance was seventh physical quantity which was introduced or taken in fundamental quantities in the SI system, and unit for its measurement was mole, and it is abbreviated as MOL, and all of them are lowercase alphabets. Okay, so amount of substance is a physical quantity which is taken as fundamental quantity in SI system. SI unit for its measurement is mole, and it is abbreviated as MOL. All of them are lowercase alphabet. Something was missing. Angles. Due to some reasons, we'll see later on, they cannot consider it as a physical quantity in fundamental quantities. But still, it was needed. We needed something like angle, plane angle and solid angle. So they made a separate section, supplementary units or supplementary quantities. And the two quantities which were taken as supplementary quantities were, the first is plane angle, and SI unit for its measurement is radian. Now, moving ahead, two more quantities were there which they could not include in fundamental quantities, but still their inclusion or consideration was important. Those are plane angle and solid angle. So what they did, they considered them as supplementary quantities. So first supplementary quantity we have listed in SI system is plane angle, and SI unit for measurement is radian, abbreviated as RAD. All are lowercase alphabet. Then second quantity is solid angle. SI unit for measurement of solid angle is steradian. SI unit for measurement of solid angle is steradian, and it is abbreviated as SR. Both are lowercase alphabets, right? So this was list of all the physical quantities which were taken as fundamental quantities along with supplementary, and rest of all quantities, physical quantities, are taken as or counted as derived quantity. And units for them now is very interesting. We don't have to make a separate unit for each of them. Now you can derive by using units of these physical quantities. 7 plus 2. Using these ones, we can define or make a unit or create a unit for every other derived quantity, which we'll see in coming topics. now we know all the physical quantities which were listed as fundamental quantities or base quantities and their units in SI system. Now let's discuss the definition of SI unit of various physical quantities, and we'll see some methods for measuring length, mass and time also in our next topic. So let's begin with length. In SI system, unit for measurement of length is meter. The question was how this definition was made, or what was the logic behind making definition of 1 meter, or how we concluded that this length is 1 meter. So in early days they have placed a rod, they have used a rod of length 1 meter which was kept in some secure place, and they claim that this length will be 1 meter. In fact, it was defined in terms of the distance from pole of the earth to equator of the earth also. But those definitions were not very logical. So in 1960, 1 meter was defined on atomic standards, and it was defined as length of 1,650,763.3 wavelengths in vacuum of orange colored radiation emitted by krypton 86. I'll repeat. In 1960, for the first time, 1 meter was measured in atomic standards as length of 1,650,763.3 wavelengths of orange colored radiation in vacuum emitted by krypton 86. Right? So this was a precise or more logical definition of 1 meter. In fact, 1 meter can also be defined in terms of the distance traveled by the light, and it can be defined as distance traveled by light in vacuum in 1 by 299,792,458 part of 1 second. I'll repeat. We can also define 1 meter as distance traveled by light in 1 by 299,792,458 part of 1 second in vacuum. Right? So this is how 1 meter was defined. Now, in physics, we'll be dealing with length in large variation. This table shows order of magnitude of few of the lengths which we'll be dealing with. You can see it ranges from 10 raised to minus 15 meter, which is actually order of size of nucleus, or say distance of earth from sun, which is of the order 10 raised to 11 meter, to size of the estimated size of the universe, which is supposed to be or assumed to be of the order 10 raised to 25 meter, right? So this says we'll be dealing with length in large range, starting from 10 raised to minus 15 meter, which is a very small length, to length of order 10 raised to 25 meter, which is very large value, right? Which corresponds to size of the universe, as you can see in this table. Now, measuring length ranging from 10 raised to 3 meter to 10 raised to minus 5 meter, you will see is easy. We have direct methods to measure the lengths ranging from 10 raised to 3 meter to 10 raised to minus 5 meter. That is, say, from few kilometers to micrometers. In laboratory, we will see the methods. We'll have instruments which we can use directly to measure the lengths in this range. But we cannot measure the length of the order 10 raised to 11 meter directly. We cannot measure the distance of earth from the sun using a measuring tape or any such thing, right? So we cannot measure these lengths directly. So for that we have some indirect methods which will be using to measure lengths which do not lie in the range of 10 raised to minus 5 meter to 10 raised to 3 meter, or even these lengths also we can measure using our indirect methods. So let's discuss few of the indirect methods which will be using to measure very small distances or maybe very large distances. Very first of them is method of reflection method. This we have been discussing since junior classes. You must have solved a numerical, an echo was heard after this many seconds, so estimate the distance of the wall from the person. What we do in this method is we make use of some waves, maybe sound wave or maybe laser or maybe radio waves, to measure the distance between the 2 points. What we do is we have a source of wave. We have a source which will send waves in the direction of the point where we have to reach. And then there will be a receiver which will be receiving the reflected wave. You can see in this figure, which will be receiving the reflected wave, reflected from the point whose distance we have to measure, and will also record the time. Will also record the time at which we have received the reflected wave. So now what we have is the time at which I has sent this wave and the time at which the receiver has received the wave. So I know the time interval which the wave has taken to travel onward journey and backward journey, right? So suppose t be the time taken by the wave to travel back to the same point, and if c be the speed of the wave, then what is the distance traveled by the wave in forward and reverse journey? Altogether, wave has traveled a distance equal to c into t. So we can estimate the distance between the 2 points as c into t by 2, that is half of ct, right? So this is a method of reflection which is very simple to use. There are many techniques. You must have heard sonar system, or even radar makes use of this. So there are many cases where we use this method of reflection to estimate the distance between objects which cannot be, distances of which cannot be measured directly. In fact, distance of moon from earth is also estimated using the same method, right? Okay, now let's take next method, that is method of parallax, which will be measuring using again to measure large distances. Let's see what is parallax. If you observe an object at some distance from your left eye, keeping your right eye closed, and then shift the vision, hide your left eye and see it from right eye, you'll observe there is some lateral displacement. You'll feel that object has shifted from its position, though actually it has not shifted. This is known as parallax. So if the distance between two eyes be, say, S, and the distance of the object which I am viewing be R from my eyes, and the angle which the line joining the object with my eyes be theta, then this angle theta is known as parallactic angle. Okay, now since distance between my eyes is very small as compared to the distance of the object which I am seeing from eyes, I can assume this to be an arc of radius r and angular measure theta in, say, radians. So this distance can be estimated as length of arc, which is given by formula S equals to r theta, right? Now I know the distance between my eyes S. This theta, if I can measure, then this distance r can be estimated as S upon theta. So this method is known as parallax method, and this method is very useful to estimate the distance of stars from Earth or objects which are at very large distance from Earth. We follow a similar thing. What we do is, instead of using our two eyes, what we do is, you can see in this figure, we take 2 points at sufficiently large distance so that error is less or our readings are accurate. We take 2 points on Earth at sufficiently large distance. We measure the distance between the 2 points on Earth, say it is S, and then we measure the angle which the star line joining the star and the 2 points on the Earth make, and that angle is parallactic angle. That angle is suppose theta. So in that case, the distance of the star from the Earth, which I have denoted here by r, can be estimated as S by theta. So by knowing this distance and the parallactic angle, we can measure the distance between Earth and that particular star or whatever distant object is there, right? So r here is measured as S by theta. Now, let's see a method which will use to measure very small length, say to find size of an atom. To measure size of an atom, what we do is we use Avogadro's hypothesis. Let's see what it does. What we do in this case is, say there is an element, radius of atom of which we have to measure. So I'll take a sample or specimen of that element of known dimensions. That means volume will be known, and I'll measure its mass. Suppose small m is mass of that specimen and capital M be the molecular weight of that element. Then how many moles of that element are there in this specimen? Small m by capital M. And number of atoms in 1 mole is capital N, that is Avogadro's number. So how many atoms are there in this specimen? Small m by capital M into capital M. This is number of atoms in this specimen. Moving next. Assuming the atom to be spherical in shape, and if r be the radius of the atom, then volume of one atom will be what? 4 by 3 pi r cube. That is volume of sphere, right? So what is actual volume occupied by the atoms in this specimen? Number of atoms in the specimen into volume of the atom, volume of one atom. So volume of one atom is 4 by 3 pi r cube into number of atoms is small m by capital M into capital M, right? So this is what actual volume occupied by atoms in this specimen. Also, by Avogadro's hypothesis, we know that actual volume occupied by atoms is 2/3 volume of the specimen, right? The rest of them are voids or free spaces. So if I equate that 4 by 3 pi r cube into small m by capital M into capital N with 2/3 of volume of the specimen and rearrange the terms and simplify the expression, we get radius of the atom is capital M by 2 pi capital N rho whole raised to 1 by 3. Here rho stands for density of the atom, density of the specimen, right? So this is a method which we use to estimate size of atom or very small sizes. Okay. Moving to the next physical quantity, that is mass. A SI unit for measurement of mass is kilogram, and 1 kilogram in early days was considered as mass of 1 liter of water at 4 degrees Celsius. But now mass of 1 kg, it's mass of a platinum iridium cylinder, which is kept in International Bureau of Weights and Measures at Serves in France, right? What they have done is they have made a prototype of 1 kg, which is made up of an alloy, this platinum iridium, and it is kept at International Bureau of Weights in Serves, France, right? So that is what we say is now 1 kg. Now, moving to measuring mass. Let's have a look on this table. This table shows range of masses of various objects which will be seeing or using in physics or dealing in physics. For example, the smallest mass here shown is of the order 10 raised to minus 30 kg. That is mass of one electron. Or you can see the mass of Earth, which is of the order 10 raised to 25 kg. Or say mass of Sun, which is of order 10 raised to 30 kg. Or say mass of entire universe, which is estimated to be of the order 10 raised to 55 kg. Right? So we'll be dealing with masses of large range, right from 10 raised to minus 30 kg to 10 raised to 55 kg. Right? Okay. Now, measuring mass of common objects is very easy. We can use beam balance, or there are other weighing machines also based on Spring, Hooke's law, or other principles. We can use those weighing machines or beam balance, simple beam balance, to measure mass of common objects, right? And that can be done directly. However, indirect methods are also there, which will be use to measure the mass of Earth, or say Sun or Moon. And one of the principles is Newton's law of gravitation. We can use Newton's law of gravitation to estimate the mass of Sun, or say mass of Earth, or say mass of Moon, right? That is indirect method. We can also measure very small masses of say elementary particles, by using mass spectrographs. Mass of electron or mass of proton, which are based on the radius of the projectile and other things, which we'll see in higher syllabus. So we can measure the mass of elementary particles using mass spectrograph, right? One important point I'd like to discuss. Many people still believe that weight and mass is same, but being a student of science, we should understand the difference between mass and weight. Mass is what? Matter stored in substance, and it is measured in kg, kilograms, right? Whereas weight is what? Weight of any object is the force with which Earth attracts any object towards its center. So weight is not mass, weight is the force with which Earth attracts any object towards its center. And how do we obtain weight of any object on the surface of Earth? Mass into acceleration due to gravity. So mass is matter stored in substance, and weight is the force with which Earth attracts any object towards its center, and it is measured in Newton, right? So weight should not be misunderstood as mass. Mass is matter stored in substance, and weight is what? Weight is the force with which Earth attracts any object towards its center, and it is measured as m into g. And SI unit for measurement of weight is Newton, right?